All right, well, welcome, ladies, to the Rise Up Special Guest Speaker Series event. Whew, that's a mouthful. I should have thought about that when I named that. Who's excited this evening for our special guest? Woo, I am. Yay. I am thrilled to introduce you to our special guest for this evening, Dr. Laura. Now, Dr. Laura obtained her undergraduate background in health and nutrition from Cornell University and continued on to a graduate programs in clinical nutrition and chiropractic. Now, she then trained with the Institute for Functional Medicine and completed her functional medicine certification. And currently, she is completing an additional fellowship in functional medicine with the Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. Boy, do I need that anti-aging. Can we say that she's an overachiever here? Somebody who loves education and knowledge? Fantastic. Now, Dr. Laura is also the founder of Heartroot Health. It's a wellness center right here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Lucky me. And she's now pursuing her passion of helping highly motivated women like you who are motivated about your health, to truly have it all. So Dr. Laura, she pairs her in-depth clinical background as a functional medicine doctor with an exclusive online access and coaching support to get her patients the answers and results that they've been looking for. So not only can they survive, but they can thrive. And that is awesome. So Dr. Laura, welcome. It is so great to have you here with us this evening. And thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I think I need you to always introduce me.
That's what all my guests say. Well, you definitely deserve it. You are amazing. And, you know, I want everyone to know, you and I met actually, our story, our little backstory here. We met through a mutual friend who said, you two ladies need to meet each other. It's been just a little bit over 6 months ago. And when you and I met, we just instantly, we clicked, you know, we talked for hours and hours. And I just knew then I had to introduce you to my ladies, you know, and through our conversations, I realized that you're just one of those rare doctors who sees that there's so much of the success a woman is going to have on her health and improving her health is not just about educating her and giving her the proper protocol, saying, here, do this, you know, to create change, but actually helping her shift her mindset shift to start facilitating that change. And that's very rare to see. You know, so many doctors don't do that. And that's just one of those things that I just admire and love about you. And that really is that you really get the work and that your patients, you know, and help them changing their mindset, because without that, I mean, the protocol that you give, that really means nothing, as I'm sure you know firsthand. So bravo to you, seriously. And thank you for all that you do in the health field and for taking time out of your busy schedule here this evening on a Friday night to spend it with all of us. So thank you. We've got so many questions for you. On topics tonight of conversations to discuss. So we're just going to dive right in, if that's okay with you.
Let's do it.
Sure. Perfect. That we get it all. First off, I would love it if you would explain exactly, let's start at the beginning here, what exactly functional medicine is versus traditional medicine. And this is great to leeway into the beginning of our conversation, because this was actually one of the questions from one of our ladies here who submitted it this evening that she wanted to know. So I'm sure there's a lot of us that want to know what's the difference. So if you could explain that.
Yeah, absolutely. If all you ladies don't mind, can you give me a little show of hands if any of you do know what functional medicine is? A little bit here and there, 50-50. Okay, well, functional medicine basically is, let's use an example of, since we're here in your gut month, a gut issue. Let's say you go to the doctor because you've been having stomach pain and digestive trouble. In regular traditional medicine, they'll typically ask you some questions, do an exam, either send you out for more scans, and most of the time send you home with a medication to resolve your symptoms, right? In functional medicine, we take a step back and we look at your stomach pain, your digestive issues, and say, okay, obviously we want you to be comfortable and get you out of pain, but more importantly, why is that happening? What's the underlying reason why, so that we can fix it so it doesn't come back and you don't have to keep going on a medication or going back for more tests. So it's really a way of looking at not just your symptoms, but your foundational health that set the stage for those symptoms. And this looks at your nutrition, your own biochemistry and genetics, your stressors, your mindset, your environment, the people around you, your relationships. And you might be thinking, well, all of that isn't related to health and medicine, but it actually is. And some of those parts are more important than a diagnosis or a protocol to follow, as we've already been told. So functional medicine really is meant to be a holistic, and its power lies in a preventative approach as well. I don't think it has to be an either or with traditional medicine. It's a both and. So they solve different problems. Conventional traditional medicine is so important for life-saving medicine when we need it, but it really lacks in that preventative holistic care aspect. Our system isn't built for that. And that's where functional medicine really shines.
So true. So true. Yeah. Looking at the whole, right? Instead of just microscopic, just one area, taking it all into effect, like you said. So one of the follow-up questions to that my ladies had was, with that, when your patients do come see you, what should they expect in an initial visit from you? What's typical? We know what we expect when we go to a regular doctor.
Yeah. So first and foremost, you can expect to be there a heck of a lot longer.
That's so true. I love that.
Our average first visit is anywhere from 75 minutes to an hour and a half, sometimes up to 2 hours, depending on your health history. If you're coming in with a lot of complex issues that have been going on over time, multiple complaints, it takes a while to go back through that and tease out all the details of what's going on. And we really go all the way back to your history, starting at your birth and your mom's pregnancy, as much as you can remember. You're going to probably be asked a lot of questions that you aren't asked traditionally at the doctor, like about your mindset, like about your habits and routines, like if you have a support network at home, how you manage stress, different ways that you exercise. So it's a lot more like really hearing your story and being there to understand what's going on in all these different aspects of your life, versus that quick in and out in 5-10 minutes type of visit.
That is so good. I mean, that's so juicy. I just wish every doctor did that. It's so crucial. I mean, it's the only way you can find something out. It truly is the only way to get answers, because it's all important. And doctors, they just aren't trained in that, unless you're in functional medicine and you had that training. So that's exciting. I encourage all my ladies to see functional medicine doctors, and now they have an option with you, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to be able to create that space for you to tell us your story as well. What most of us in the functional medicine field don't want is that kind of authoritative doctor-patient relationship where they tell you what to do and whatnot. Really, we want to be a collaborative partnership with you, because at the end of the day, we can show you where the water is and show you the ropes, but you have to be the one taking action. And we want to build a place where you can trust us to guide you on that.
Yes, powerful. All right, let's start with the topic that's our theme for this month, the gut microbiome. We've all been learning. Last week on our call, we were talking about prebiotic and probiotic foods and how to support our gut and build friendly bacteria up. In a minute, I'll ask you some of the ladies' specific questions, but could you first share with us maybe your experience and how important, or just let us know how, because I'm telling them, but I want them to hear it from a doctor now, how important gut health is to balance our overall mental, because I think there's a huge connection with mental and physical health, and how specifically does sugar, because that's what we are, I kick sugar, how sugar destroys our gut lining, maybe causing leaky gut or other things, or imbalances the microbiome. Maybe you could give us a little science behind that and a little bit more explanation deeper than I could.
Yeah. So I think a lot of us, when we think about our gut, we think purely about digesting food, right? What are we eating? How is it leaving our body? But the reality is, I want you to all think about your weight, and I want you to take 10 pounds off of that number, because 10 pounds on average is the amount of little organisms, little bugs in your gut that we're all carrying around. Now, I know that sounds kind of gross, but they outnumber us by billions. So we got to get to be okay with it because when we live in harmony with them is when our guts feel really good. When we're not creating a good environment for all these billions of little bugs in there, that's when we start to feel a little off and get some symptoms. And this does go far beyond your gut itself. Your gut and your brain are in direct connection all the time. And an easy example I like to use to think about that is, think about a time when you've been maybe really nervous, really upset, really excited, really stressed out. How many of you have felt that in your stomach before? Butterflies in your tummy, that knowing in your gut? That's a direct connection from your brain to your gut. They are constantly talking to each other. So as much as it's good to pay attention to what we're eating, we also have to think about, where is our mindset and our nervous system and our stress levels around eating too? How many of you have been guilty of eating when you're stressed out, eating on the go, eating while you're doing 9,000 other things? I find myself doing it too. But when we're doing that, we don't send our brain the signals that it's time to digest food. We're sending it the signals that we have all of these other obligations and responsibilities and things to worry about. And to be able to really digest our food, that whole process starts up here. We have to get our brain in a spot where we can actually activate the part of our nervous system that starts making all of those digestive enzymes to break down your food. So we can talk more about this later, and it's in some materials that I have for you guys, but a big suggestion I make when you're looking at optimizing your digestion and your gut health is, before you even start to think about what you're eating, think about how you're eating. And I want you to for at least a week, try not to be distracted by other things when you're eating. No phone, no TV, no work, no eating in the car, balancing your food on your knees. I want you to find a place, sit down, take a couple big, deep breaths in and out, 5 of them. Do that before you eat consistently for a week, and tell me if you notice a difference with how you're digesting your food, how you feel after eating your food. Because that very simple trick, which you have to breathe anyway, right? You need to do it. That activates the part of your brain that goes and tells your gut, hey, we got work to do. We're going to start breaking down food. So it starts before you even put the food in your mouth. And that's how powerful these connections with other parts of the body are. Once we actually get into digestion and look at gut health, well, now we're impacting everything. We're impacting your hormones. We're impacting your stress response. We're impacting your immune system. All of the little brain chemicals that control our mood and how we feel, things like happiness and excitement, a lot of those are made by the bacteria in the gut. So everything is very interwoven. And a lot of times when things are wrong in our gut, it might not even present at first as something like constipation or gas. It might look like anxiety or trouble sleeping or hormone issues. So when we think about gut, I don't tell you all these things to make it overwhelming for you, but I want you to understand how it impacts literally every other system in your body.
So powerful. And sugar, is it detrimental? Do those bugs love sugar? Good, bad? What's the deal on that? How does that run havoc?
Right. So that 10 pounds of little critters that are running around inside us all the time, what we feed them determines their behavior. So how many people in here have kids or grandkids or little nieces or nephews? What happens when you give them all a ton of sugar?
They go crazy.
Same thing with all your little ones in your gut. And really what happens is, a lot of sugar can promote the growth of different kinds of bugs in your gut that don't serve us well. It can kind of put you at risk for things like candida or fungal overgrowths or bacterial imbalances. And while yes, those can cause things like bloating and discomfort, more often than not, they impact that brain connection. So we get these mood swings and we get irritable and we get anxious or we get depressed. And it all starts with what we're feeding them. And sugar really promotes those processes. It raises inflammation in our gut as a whole. And if our gut is inflamed, all of those different systems I was just talking about,
Yeah.
everything is impacted.
Powerful. Yeah. I noticed that. I mean, I don't have sugar anymore, but I still will essentially have sugar in the sense that I'll have bread
Mhm.
occasionally. And when I have something that is carbs like that, wow, that just makes me set off a craving to want, like, I'm not satisfied. I want more and more and more. Whereas if, I ate a big salad, it's like I'm satisfied, I'm done, and there's no talk in my head, like there's no discussion, there's no like go get more, there's just it's over with. And I swear it's the little bugs, that the bad bugs that are just sending signals to my brain saying, oh my gosh, give me more, give me more, give me more. I want more of that.
Well,
Am
it
I
is. They
crazy?
want to grow and flourish, even if it's not good for us.
So is that signal coming from my gut? Is it those bugs that are, triggering, from that, wanting me to go get more of that because they want to feed off of that. They liked that. There was something there.
That's definitely part of it. We do see
Yeah.
in studies that literally the bacteria and the different organisms in our gut can actually send signals to our brain, which is
Yeah.
kind of crazy when you think about it. On top of that, we also know that sugar just tends to light up the same reward pathways in our brain as most addictions.
Yeah.
So it's like giving an alcoholic a little bit of alcohol again. It's going to light that up again and remind you of, ooh, how good is it when I get all that sugar? So
Right.
you're kind of getting multiple pathways lit up when you bring that back in.
Yeah.
And we can talk about this too, but differentiating between refined sugar and carbohydrates as a whole.
Yes.
Those
Yes.
two things are different.
They are, but they still obviously have the same. I mean, as I discuss in the course, complex carbs versus simple carbs, and those simple carbs, like the bread, is just converting into sugar anyway. So it's the same thing. And so it's having the same impact, definitely, like you're saying with those cravings. Yeah,
Right.
fascinating. All right, let's dive into some more precise questions about the gut that came in from some of our ladies. So the first question was, I'm going to just read this here. Once you settle into eating predominantly plant-based whole food diet, which is what I prescribe, or I, suggest very strongly to my ladies. None of the I Kick Sugar course is a diet, but that's where I'm trying to gear them. Just real whole food without labels, make it simple. You don't have to read anything, and you don't have to count anything if you just have food without labels. So the question is, once you settle into eating predominantly plant-based whole food diet, what is a next step into improving your gut bacteria? How do I continue to work on healing a gut that has been abused from years of eating the SAD, standard American diet, with lots of sugar and diet sodas, is what one of our ladies would like to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I thought a lot about this question when I was putting together some materials for you afterwards. Anytime we start to shift our diet, like if you have made that transition from the standard American diet to a whole foods based diet, your gut microbiome has already started to change. Really, it's within 24 hours of starting to change our diet that we start getting those shifts. That's why a lot of time it's that first week when you cut out sugar, or that first week of a new eating program, that are so tough, because your entire microbiome is changing and shifting. So when you are looking at this nice, diverse, plant-based whole food diet, the best way you can think about continuing to build that gut health is, I think, adding as much diversity as you can into it. It can be really tempting to eat the same thing day after day when we get into a routine, but really we know the best way to build a nice, healthy, balanced microbiome is to get lots of different things in there. So lots of different plant foods. Maybe you want to try a new one every week. You can also just make sure you're rotating things through so that you're not eating them quite as often. There are more tools that you can use. I certainly don't want to like overwhelm you thinking you have to do all this fancy stuff, but intermittent fasting and fasting methods are another way if you really want to fine tune and experiment with things to improve your gut microbiome. adding in different kinds of fermented foods, pre and probiotic foods, which it sounds like you guys have already talked about, is a great way to expand on that. If you're someone who takes a probiotic supplement, maybe you want to cycle a few of them through, take a new one every other month instead of staying on the same one long term. You can see on the back, they all have different kinds of things in them. So the more diversity you get, the more kind of things can grow. And when you do see what I wrote up for you guys later, I actually wrote down a 6-step process of how to do exactly this. Meaning, once you started making diet shifts, what are some other things to look at, especially if you're still experiencing gut symptoms, even if you have changed to a new diet? Because sometimes we have to do a little work for things that were going on. So I do walk you through that process and give you a little more ideas on how to do that.
Ooh, yay. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Next question is I have been diagnosed with gastritis, and when I eat too many raw vegetables, it flares up. How can I eat more vegetables without the gastritis flaring up?
Yeah. So 2 answers to that question. First and foremost is probably going to take a little bit of targeted supplement work to heal that lining. Gastritis means that the lining of your stomach is inflamed and irritated. So think about a time that you've fallen, you've gotten a scrape, you've gotten a brush burn on your arm. That's what the inside of your stomach looks like in gastritis. So it's really important to put some good healing things into your supplement routine to fix that first. Raw foods, again, are definitely going to irritate that. So a way you can start to bring more vegetables in are cooked. You can puree them into soups, like mix them with a good bone broth or a vegetable broth, puree them up. This kind of pre-digests them a little bit. It helps break down that fiber. It's usually that high fiber content in raw foods that irritates that gastric lining a little bit more. But chances are it's going to have to be a combination of cooking your foods well for a while, pureeing them, and adding in some of those healing supplements.
Would one of those be, or would enzymes help with that? Would you recommend somebody taking enzymes prior to eating vegetables if they're experiencing gastritis?
So enzymes can definitely help later on in the digestive process, specifically if what we look at is happening in the stomach. We know that we're getting the bigger chunks of food coming in, and then we need a really acidic environment to break them down into this kind of mushy liquid material, which is why pureeing the foods helps bypass that process a little bit. So what we actually need to do for a stomach gastritis case is usually, again, think if you have a brush burn or a cut, what feels soothing? Usually if you put like a little lotion, a little like an Aquaphor or coconut oil, something over it to protect it, right? We want to do actually the same thing with your stomach. So there's different herbs, things called like slippery elm, marshmallow root, aloe vera, that help give this nice, it's called a mucilaginous, that sounds gross, I know, coating to kind of protect the stomach when you go put the food in it. And really you want to do that for a while first before introducing things like digestive enzymes or betaine, because that may irritate things a little bit more until that inflammation has calmed down.
Okay, interesting. Just kind of on the same topic, because I was telling my ladies, at least last week when we were talking about probiotics, they were asking, should I take them? Shouldn't I? Personally myself, I take them kind of as on an as needed basis. I don't take them daily. I just kind of listen to my gut. Sometimes I'll take them every day, 2 weeks in a row straight, and then I'll be off for, 2 weeks. Or if I notice all of a sudden my stomach just starts bloating, which is very, very rare now that my diet is so clean. But if that does happen, and usually I think it's stress that's causing that, or other hormones, female hormones, I even believe, in my opinion, which you can give me your opinion on that. But then I'll even take probiotics, whereas like way in the past in my 20s, I might've taken Pepto-Bismol or an antacid. And I take the probiotics with a lot of water, like maybe 90 billion a strand, at a good pharmaceutical grade. And my stomach, I notice like the bloating disappears. Is this in my head too, or is this something that, you see common, or what probiotics could be used for and help with like that flare up in that moment?
Yeah, I think probiotics are useful in a couple situations. One is definitely in times of increased stress. And I don't just mean mental stress. I mean, if you are like really pushing yourself hard, maybe it's workouts, maybe it's work, maybe you're traveling a lot. Your body still interprets all these things as stressors. So
Right.
adding in a little probiotics can just help keep that gut microbiome nice and healthy and balanced during stress. Um, it definitely also helps while you're doing dietary shifts. So as you're first doing things like reducing sugar, like changing your diet towards these new eating patterns, it's always going to help you to bring those up. Um, when it comes to when you're actually experiencing symptoms, whether that's bloating or constipation or gas, whatever it may be, then it's a little trial and error, because really we have to know where it's coming from. And usually the probiotics can definitely help with like that large intestine, your colon regularity. So especially in cases where that bloating and gas is accompanied by constipation. But in some people who their digestive machinery is not yet up to par, meaning they're not properly breaking down food yet, probiotics may not benefit. And these are often the people who, if you ever talk to someone and they're like, I tried a probiotic and it made me feel worse. It's really not the probiotic, it's that their digestion isn't working well. So a probiotic just wasn't the right solution.
Gotcha. Wow, interesting. All right, kind of on that same line with constipation. So the next question is it normal to not have a bowel movement for 2 to 3 days in a row? I was recently told that everyone's a little different and that not everyone goes every day. Is this true? What's the deal?
Just because things are common does not mean they're normal.
So did you hear that, ladies? That is so true. I'm thinking of blood tests
So am I.
and how that whole paradigm has shifted. You know, it's like we've gotten worse, and so now the range has gotten, higher.
Right. And like
Which is
you
pretty
have to think it this way. Like our body is made to move things from mouth to elimination in 24 to 36 hours. So
okay.
if things are hanging out there for 2-3 days, now you have waste that is literally just fermenting and getting more toxic in your system. And this in the long run is not great. So I actually think that even though some people experience only going every few days, it's not normal. And there are definitely ways you can work to try and make that a little more regular. My feeling is that it's just so commonplace now, or that a lot of people are coming from a place where they used to only go once a week, that it seems like it's good enough. And it is an improvement. It's much better than going once a week, of course. But really we're looking to get at least one bowel movement a day. That's ideal. Sometimes people have more, but at least one a day so that we know things are moving through, we're eliminating. And again, this goes so far, especially for women, beyond just gut health. I'm particularly thinking of hormone health and estrogen, because really that's one of the main ways that we release excess estrogen, which we don't really want hanging around. So if that's just building up in the system, that estrogen is just getting recycled. So a lot of times when women are only going every few days, they often are experiencing PMS, perimenopausal symptoms, hot flashes and menopause problems, brain fog, all of these other symptoms that go with poorly managed estrogen. So again, it's common, but it's not normal.
That's fascinating. I didn't realize that. That's so fascinating.
That's like a whole other day we could spend talking
That
about.
is. Well, we might be touching on women hormones. We'll see how we do with time. Okay, so next question about that, let's see, is which kind of we talked a little about with probiotics. When you first start implementing probiotics into your daily regime, she wants to know, can it cause a burning or uncomfortable feeling in your gut? I'm kind of curious too. Can that happen?
Normally, what tends to be normal is for like a period of 1 to 3 days, you may experience like some bloating, some gurgling, some changes in your bowel movement. Burning is an interesting one. I don't think that's like a normal adjustment symptom that we would consider it. I think that's one that would warrant digging a little bit deeper. It could be that it's contributing to something called die-off, which is when some of the bad bugs start dying and we get weird symptoms. Or it could be you're reacting to something in the probiotic that doesn't agree with you. So usually if more severe symptoms like that are happening, that's when diving into a little personal gut testing is a little bit of a better idea.
Yeah.
With those kind of tests, we can actually see what kind of bugs are in your microbiome and which ones are out of balance. And we can make a much better recommendation on a probiotic based on what you need.
Okay. Very good. Wow. See, I'm
Generally,
learning
we don't
something,
like burning.
ladies.
Anytime we get a burning feeling, not really a normal adjustment symptom. So that's always one that you want to kind of like, this is weird. Let me dig a little deeper into it.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm even trying to figure out like what that even feels like. I'm not sure I know what that feels like in the gut, a burning sensation. I mean, maybe I've had it, but I've never used that term for my gut, like, ooh, I'm feeling a burning sensation. Up here, every once in a blue moon, I had, acid reflux, probably I could count on one hand how many times I've had it in my life. And that felt like a burning feeling. I'm guessing is that the same sensation you would have just down in your gut, kind of a hot, flamey, fiery feeling?
It could be, yeah. It's almost like a deep heat is
Okay.
like kind of the way I think about it. Like that's usually why it feels like it's burning. It's more than just like a gas pain or something like that. It feels heated almost.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Good to identify. All right. Next question. We've got some great questions. Thank you, ladies,
really
for
good
all
questions.
who submitted. And Dr. Laura, you're doing fantastic. Thank you for all your knowledge. All right. This question, moving kind of off of microbiome a little bit. She wrote in saying, it has been nearly 2 years since I kicked sugar. Woohoo! Snap, snap, snap. And my eating is very clean. I know this woman, it's very clean. However, on my upper back, just below my neck, I have small red acne-like bumps that won't clear up. I thought my poor skin was related to poor diet, but that doesn't seem to be the case. I've gone to a dermatologist, but the retinol creams and sprays don't have much effect. What do you think might be causing this? Any ideas?
Good question. I have a few thoughts on it. First, we think of skin as kind of just like this sac surrounding our body, but it's actually an organ and it's a detox organ. So whenever we have bumps, rashes, acne, eczema, anything like that, it's a normal process by which the body is trying to get rid of something.
Yeah.
Specifically, if we're looking at the neck area, the head and neck have the most concentrated lymph channels in the entire body. Your lymphatic system is basically your body's garbage disposal system. It goes in, it gets all the normal waste products from your regular metabolism and empties them out to leave your body via either sweat, pee, or poop, right? So a lot of times if that lymph is not properly flowing, we can get things on our neck, on our jawline, on the back of our neck, on our shoulders, sometimes muscle tightness, but a lot of times skin stuff, because there's a little bit of backup in those lymphatic channels. So some other things to look at might be, are you well hydrated? Are you moving your body? Are you sweating regularly? Maybe a little bit of dry brushing or lymphatic massage or those little gua sha tools to see if that helps clear it up. See if it has a little bit of a detox impact. A second thought is, even if you've switched to a different diet, healthy foods can also be a problem for some people. And food sensitivities show up in some really weird ways, including skin stuff. I know the first time I discovered I had food sensitivities, it never showed up as digestive things. It was always skin issues. I would get little eczema patches or weird little bumps, and they can show up anywhere. So if it's going for it's been going on for a while, maybe it's coming and going, you could try a little bit of food journaling, see if taking things out, putting them back in impacts it, or you might want to streamline it and do some food sensitivity and gut testing, just to like cut down on the time. My last thought has to do with something not directly related to gut health, but something called your omega balance. So when we talk about inflammation in the body, You might have heard of like omega-3 fats, omega supplements. Anybody familiar with those?
Yeah.
So we actually look at blood tests where we see the people's omega balance, which is how many omega-6 fats they have and how many omega-3. Omega-6 fats can tend to be inflammatory. Omega-3 tend to be anti-inflammatory. The ratio of that is what matters. And when that omega-6 ratio is higher than the 3, it sounds weird, but a lot of the times we see things like bumps on the neck, shoulders, and the back of the upper arms. So you can do a little testing, or you can also try something called an evening primrose oil. Try it for 2 or 3 weeks. If that's the cause of it, you're going to notice those little bumps go away.
Wow. So your ideas were totally separate from my ideas. Well, one, we were kind of similar on two. This is like mystery diagnosis.
Right? It's fun.
Because I thought that I had pimples on my back for a while. And when I go to the dermatologist, they're like, no, they're not pimples. They're, of course, I don't remember what she told me, but they've not just she, I've been to several through the years, and they've all kind of said the same thing when they see my back. And it was something to the effect of, they said it's basically a fungal skin infection caused by overwashing, me scrubbing myself too much, like with my loofah scrubber, back scrubber, it irritating, the skin cells, and then heat, like when I'm sweating or something, come in there, and it's an irritation. They're like, stop washing so much, Joyce, that you could do that also. I mean, without looking at this person's back, that's one thought that came into my mind. And then the other thought was similar to what you said, just how food comes, even though we're a clean diet, like, right. I mean, like, I know Dawn, like, she's got issues with onions and peppers, and it's like, healthy foods, and I know there's like nightshades for certain people, it's like all different things. Or for instance, my sister who's type 1 diabetic, and I've got 2 celiac genes. So I'm sure she's got 2 celiac genes with all her other autoimmune issues and disorders. She's got horrible rashes on the back of her neck, like her hairline and her wrists and her hands and her arms, that, I mean, she scratches to death. That is related to, I believe, gluten sensitivity. When I've gotten her off of gluten, boom, it clears up. When she goes back to the gluten, it all comes back. And of course, also manifests even more when she's stressed on top of that, which is mostly the time for my sister. So
yeah, stress is a big one for sure. And, going back to what you said about a little fungal infection, this whole microbiome that we're talking about in the gut, it's also in your sinus passages and on your skin. So, another thing to look at is, we're talking about getting all this nice clean stuff into our gut, but same goes for what you're putting on your body, what you're washing your hair with. And it can be overwhelming to think about it when you start looking at the labels of all your products and they have like 50 ingredients, most of which you can't pronounce. But really your skin is absorbing all of that, and it's just adding to the stress on your body. So slowly starting to swap out for some lower tox or non-tox products whenever you have skin stuff going on is always a good idea too. You don't have to do it all at once. I tell people, like, pick one at a time, replace it little by little.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, it can be overwhelming. That came up on one of our calls, just about toxicity with all the chemicals.
Yeah.
So bad. And it is overwhelming. On top of being sugar sleuth, reading those labels, it's like we need to be beauty sleuths or cleaning sleuths when we read our products at home, like label sleuths, period, in everything. Okay. So our next question falls kind of under nutrition and the gut health, because as we know, all food, good or bad, affects our gut. So the question is, and I'm curious about this too, I've been reading different things on this. The question is allulose, I think I'm saying that correctly, the evil twin sister of sucralose? And I've been seeing it used now in many keto-friendly foods. And, my thing to this too is I first saw it just recently as one of the sugars in Trader Joe's. They're selling the packaging now, the allulose, as in the sugar section. And I was like, oh, what's this? And, I looked it up. And then I even heard on a podcast with David Perlmutter and Lewis Holmes that I think Tammy, one of our ambassadors, suggested us. He was even stating, which came to a shock to me, but saying that he's even using a little bit of this now It's a new sweetener that it's actually been demonstrated to improve your blood sugar. It has some positive metabolic activities, he says. So, and that it's not classified, or it is classified as a rare sugar. So it's not the typical, it's not related to sucralose, and that can get confusing to people because it sounds like that with the OSE. So what's your take on that, if you have any, since it's so new?
Yeah, all that ending in OSE means is it's a chemical name for a sugar. The makers of sucralose decided to be very smart when they named it and added it on there so that it would just fall in line with D-mannose and allulose and ribose and all these other sugars, but they're not the same. And yeah, a lot of people can tolerate allulose and things like xylitol just fine that aren't artificial sweeteners, even stevia to an extent. It's very personal, and some of people, any of those will light you up. If you're someone who's tried keto products and they've had you running to the bathroom, you are probably not good for like sugar alcohols or some of these non-cal sugar alternatives.
Right.
There's
Okay,
not really a one size fits all for that one, but I find a lot of people tolerate that really well. Anytime someone's really curious about that stuff, I always tell you to test it. Like if you've ever done a little finger prick sugar monitor, see what happens before and after you have tea with a little bit of allulose in it. See if your blood sugar spikes afterwards. That's going to be the best way to know if it negatively impacts you or not.
right.
If you have a little bit of that and your blood sugar goes up by 30 points or more, it's not a good fit for you.
Stay away. Yeah. So just to clarify, I wanted to make sure I heard you correctly, because it's my understanding, first of all, that it's not the same. It's not an artificial sweetener.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So it doesn't fall under there, but it falls under like a monk fruit, like a stevia.
Yeah.
And that, like I tell all my ladies too, even though that's a safer sugar, sweetener, different from an artificial sweetener, different from table sugar, you still need to watch and listen to your body, and it doesn't give you a free for all. And
yeah, and you'll find a lot of those, they're much more concentrated in sweetness. You really don't need a lot of them because the taste is very, very sweet in a small amount.
yeah, so true. So true. Okay, so let's talk. We've got just a few more minutes here. You were talking about hormones, women hormones. I was like, "Ooh, that's, what, I just got my pellet yesterday. I broke down for the first time. I swore I would never get estrogen, and I couldn't take my hot flashes anymore. I couldn't take with the hot flashes at night, that then created the insomnia. I mean, I'm getting sometimes 3 hours of sleep a night. That creates its own health problems. So, I started with a very small amount. We'll see how it goes. Do you have any particular take on natural hormone therapy? For me, I'm doing the testosterone pellets. I've tried all different things, from the creams to actually testosterone shots, injections, going to the doctor's office. I do the progesterone troches myself right now also. And now for the first time, I'm doing the estrogen pellet, a little bit of that too, to try and raise it. Cause I had 0 estrogen. My FSH was like 98, off the charts. I mean, I needed something. So I wanted to see what that was like. How do you feel about that with women that are in menopause?
Yeah, a hormone replacement therapy got a bad rep at some point, and really it's about how it's used and the intention it's used. And of course, we all go and think, oh my gosh, too much estrogen causes cancer. We don't want that.
Right.
But really, what we also know now is, first, there's tests you can do that show you how your body metabolizes estrogen. So first and foremost, if you're considering it, you can run a test that will tell you if you're a good candidate or not. If you're someone that does not metabolize estrogen well, and you tend to metabolize it towards the more dangerous forms, it's probably not a good idea to put more into your system. But if your body metabolizes it well, I think that bioidentical hormones can be a game changer for a lot of women in perimenopause and menopause. Really, going far beyond things like hot flashes, but really just longevity, hanging on to lean muscle, your brain health and performance. In terms of like what we see in the literature, we see best results like perimenopause up through the first 5 to 7 years around menopause. After that, the kind of benefits drop off. We don't really know if people still benefit from it. And form really depends on you. Some
Right.
people are going to do better with creams. Some are going to do better with drogies. It's like trying it out and what dose you feel comfortable at. And making sure you're working with someone who's monitoring that every step of the way for you.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't realize that there was some test that you mentioned about how you, what did you say about with estrogen? What was the term you used?
How you metabolize it.
Yes, metabolize it. I did, by the way, take a test, just had a test done, saliva test on how to metabolize caffeine. Fascinating. I'm a slow metabolizer, so I don't really want to be drinking that, or 1 cup early in the morning or mid-morning and nothing else. But what type of testing would that be for the metabolizer for estrogen? Is that blood work, or how is that performed?
It's actually an at-home urine test. It's
Oh,
called the
wow.
Dutch test.
Okay.
And it looks at a couple things. It looks at your levels of hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. It also looks at your cortisol, your stress hormones, which is really valuable for any woman going through perimenopause or menopause. Quick sidebar on that: as our ovaries stop doing their job and start retiring in menopause, your adrenal glands actually take over sex hormone production. So they start taking over estrogen, progesterone metabolism. So we want to make sure that we're really good with supporting our adrenals too.
Yeah.
But what this test also looks at is, how does your body metabolize estrogen? So when we think of estrogen, we just think ovaries make it and it's good, right? But really it has to go through this complex stage of being processed and eliminated. So it's, if you think of like filling up a bathtub with water, you want to make sure the tub doesn't overflow, but you also want to make sure that the drain is open so that water can drain out. Like we don't want stagnant water either. So what that test looks at is it makes sure that all of the points are open and going, and that you're metabolizing estrogen towards the more protective pathways. There is one pathway that people can sometimes metabolize estrogen. It's called the 4-hydroxy pathway. This is the one that's linked to the bad stuff that we don't want to deal with: higher rates of breast cancer, higher rates of gene mutation and inflammation. So if I run the Dutch test on a woman and I see her body favors that inflammatory 4-hydroxy pathway, there's no way I'm putting more estrogen in her system. But if someone doesn't have that profile and they metabolize it in a very protective way, she can be a great candidate for bioidentical hormones while she's transitioning through these different stages of reproductive years.
I'm like, I don't want to get that test, but I'm going to get that test.
It's
So we'll be cautious.
information. It's not a diagnosis or a sentence. It's
I know.
data.
Okay, let's talk also briefly on, which also falls under everything, but aging is something that I talk about with my ladies: protein, them getting enough protein. I'm plant-based, have been for 30 years now. So I do get a lot of my protein, obviously, from vegetable sources. I still do eat eggs now as well, beans, legumes, nuts. But I do also supplement with a vegan protein powder, like a pea hemp protein powder, brown rice protein powder, like a combo usually. And I'm always advocating to a lot of my ladies, they've never even heard sometimes of a protein powder, or maybe they're only getting like 20, 30 grams of protein a day. When I do have them look and see what they're getting, how can you just let them know, if you believe this also, let us know your take on how important protein is and how much. I usually try and say, like, do at least maybe 0.8 to 1, gram per pound, so like if you're 120 pounds, try and get in maybe 100, 120 grams of protein a day, what's your belief on that? And maybe also just protein with strength training is another thing for aging, how important that is, even more than, I can't say more than, cardio is just as important for so many, everything's important, ladies, but really strength training also to help process that protein as well. So share a little bit on protein.
Yeah. And when you think about, calculating how much protein you need, you do have to think about your lifestyle and your age. If you are someone who's very active, maybe you are in the gym a lot, you're also active throughout the day, your protein needs will be higher. If you are in menopause or beyond, your protein needs are higher. And you may be asking yourself, well, why is that? And it's because as we age, we break down muscle faster. So we need to raise our protein up to offset that process because we want to hang on to that lean muscle mass as long as possible. This is a lot more about just looking good. It's about mobility. It's about protecting against falls and osteoporosis. And we actually know that your lean muscle is an endocrine organ, meaning it plays a role in hormone conversations, in inflammation. So you want it as much as possible. Generally, a good starting point, if you're like, I don't want to do math, I don't want to calculate, I have no idea where to start, aim for 20 to 30 grams with every meal. I like to say 30 grams. Sounds like a lot, it's really not. Protein powders are a great way to add that in because you can add them to smoothies, you can add them to oatmeal, you can add them to yogurt, you can add them to baked goods if you're doing some no sugar baking. All of these different things. You can even put collagen protein in your coffee, in your tea, and it dissolves right in. So there's lots of ways of adding protein into your world more. But really, that's the one macronutrient that you should not be trying to limit. Because also you'll find as you increase the amount of protein you eat, it's going to noticeably decrease things like sugar cravings, feeling like you have to snack, getting energy dips, because it's a very stable form of energy. Your body has to keep running to metabolize it. Anybody in here ever, when you eat like meat or steak, kind of get like a heavy feeling in your stomach? Are you guys all pretty good with digesting sometimes?
God, I
I
forgot.
always like to ask that question because I find sometimes with women, as we age, we stop eating some of those proteins because they don't seem to make us feel as good. And really what that is it's not the food, it's again, our stomach acid and digestive enzyme production declining. So all you have to do is add some supplementation into that to help break it down and make sure you're absorbing it. But really getting in a good amount of protein with every meal is really going to change all of these different health aspects and your biomarkers for the better.
Thank you. Hear that, ladies? Get your protein in. I'm always preaching that. Kick the sugar out, get the protein in. Before we start wrapping it up here, last kind of topic is just if you have any advice or input on mindset, like what's something that how important is it? Is there any little advice that you give your patients? Anything you'd like to share with these ladies about how important mindset is to the role in our health and making us accomplish things and do this protocol?
Yeah. So your mindset is actually going to be the hardest part. All of these other things are just pathways to follow, but really you have to think about your why behind this. And it has to be something that's a little more tangible than something like weight loss. So let's say your goal is weight loss or lowering inflammation. What is that going to do for you? Does it mean you get to move around better? Does it mean you get to play with your kids and grandkids more? Does it mean you get to travel and go sightseeing better and more comfortably? So you have to assign these goals to it that are real and that you can envision every day. I don't say that to sound all woo-woo and esoteric, but like it is true. If you go into this with just like, I'm going to have to do all these things, I know it's good for my health, that is guaranteed failure. You're going to fall off this wagon and you're going to end up falling into that guilt trap that we do to ourselves as women. And like, we're not doing that anymore. Like it's 2022, we're leaving that behind.
Yes.
But really thinking about your why behind this. And for a lot of us, I think that's being there for the people around us. I think it's feeling good in our own bodies and it's doing the things we love. So if you're a writer, a journaling practice or saying a morning affirmation that revolves around some of these, just little reminders that when you're feeling like it's tough and it's hard, a little check-in with yourself, like, okay, this is hard. I'm not feeling good about it, but why am I doing this in the long run? And making sure that you can cue back into those goals you set for yourself is going to be a really important part of it.
Yeah, so true. Such good advice. That's the key to the course, the I Kick Sugar course is mindset set. I mean, the sugar, once you learn all about it and you learn how to read a label and what to do, I mean, it's simple, right? It's just, it ends up then being that why, finding your why, digging down, which is what these amazing ladies are doing in the course. Okay, so before we wrap it up, I want to share with everyone that you are so graciously offering. This is so exciting to all of our IKS ladies to help anyone out who wants to dive deeper into their gut microbiome, their gut health, a gut intelligence. I love the name of this, a gut intelligence test. And as you say, and I say, it's like, stop guessing, really, ladies, stop guessing what's going on down there and start testing. It's like when we have our awareness in module 1 and it's about identifying the problem, that's what you need to do here. So in this test, you're going to learn how to understand your gut microbiome and how it can accelerate healing, reduce inflammation, and help you all drop that unwanted body fat. So in this test, what you're going to get is a custom gut health intelligence test that you take at home. So you'll get it mailed to you. No need to go to a lab or anything. Just curious, how do they, Dr. Laura, collect it? Is it through saliva, blood, pee, urine, poop? I did a poop test once. I sent my poop in the mail.
It's a combination. It's a poop sample and a little finger prick blood test.
Okay, woohoo! You get to send your poop through FedEx or UPS. That guy's lucky, right? Whew, that pack is stinky. I did it. I did that test, I forgot how many years ago. Fascinating, the results that came back for me. And then you're going to get with that, when you send it off, you get a custom report with the reference to the results in this app. But here's the great thing that Dr. Laura is doing, which I didn't do when I paid for this test probably 12 years ago. When I did it online, I found some company. I just had to interpret it all on my own. I was like, what the heck's going on here? Like, what does this mean? And what does that mean? So thank goodness I love to play doctor with myself, but I had Dr. Google help me out there. But you are going to be with this package doing one-on-one session with the person, the woman here, and she's going to go over, Dr. Laura is going to go over these results with you, where you can ask any questions about your results coming back and get a plan put together for your nutrition and your supplements if you need any of that. And that's phenomenal. Now, this test is normally $325 she charges for this package, which still I think is ridiculously insanely cheap, Dr. Laura. You need to increase your price there. But when you use the promo code, I Kick Sugar, all capital, all together, no spacing, I Kick Sugar. And Dawn's going to put this link in the chat box here on the side here in a minute. And we'll also put it in the, I always say show notes, but it's our takeaway notes. This isn't a podcast, but in our takeaway notes with the replay, you're going to get $76 off with the promo code, making it just $249 for everything that I just said. So Dawn, if you could share that with everyone. What also Dr. Laura was talking about, I think at the beginning, you actually created a book, an ebook for us ladies to have for free, a 23-page ebook called Gut Health. Okay. It's phenomenal. I took a look at it. It's packed with information. So Dawn's also going to share that link for you where you can click on that page and get your free book. And then I'll also share that in the takeaway notes for you ladies also later with the replay. Just so much stuff. You have just been a wealth of information. I've been reading these chats here on the side as you were talking. I mean, people, I wish she was local. I love her. She's pretty and so knowledgeable. She's also just wonderful at explaining things. You really are. And someone else is saying, I agree. I mean, it's true. You are, Dr. Laura. So knowledgeable, so eloquent with your speaking and precise. I mean, I wish every doctor that I went to talked like you. And ladies, it doesn't matter if she's local or not, because if I'm not mistaken, even though, your practice is here in Scottsdale, do you not offer online, coaching, working now with tele? I mean, since COVID has really opened up the spectrum to people at working with doctors in all different, states, and I don't know if countries, but definitely in the States. So can you take on, if one of my ladies wants to reach out to you and take you on, where they can work with you, even though they're out of state?
Yeah, honestly, about 3/4 of my practice now is fully online. That just happened with everything with COVID. So my clients are all over the world right now. And then I have my little pocket here in Scottsdale, who I see in person. But the fun thing about that is we also get to be creative as providers in different ways to show up and help you all. So yes, there's one-on-one options, but there's also group coaching, and there's courses, and there's memberships, and all of these different ways that you can find to learn more of this. Whereas honestly, before COVID, that was not really a possibility. So it's been kind of fun.
Yeah, I just got one question in. I could probably already guess the answer. Does she take insurance? Most, I would say, most amazing doctors don't. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, definitely not virtually. Insurance has very strict rules about providers working across state lines. So when we work virtually, we're purely in a consulting and coaching format. And in state in Arizona, it depends. Certain things
Right.
are covered by insurance, but most nutrition advice and coaching is not yet covered.
Yes, yes. Well, I see
Believe
one.
me, I
I'm
wish
so
it was.
excited.
It would make my life a lot easier.
Oh, I know. It's so true. Insurance just makes everything challenging too, though, for doctors. Oh, well, Dr. Laura, I know we're at the top of the hour here. I just want to thank you again for joining us this evening. Your work is so important. We need more doctors like you. I'm so thankful for your friendship, and the support from, that you gave all of us tonight. I think I can speak for all my ladies. We thank you for taking time out of your busy day on a Friday evening to be with us on a Friday night and impart some of your wisdom on us. So thank you so much. And I'm sure you'll be hearing from some of my ladies, because you've just offered us so much. And seriously, ladies, reach out to her for anything. She's a heart of gold and is wealth of information. So thank you, Dr. Laura.
Thank you. And yeah, if you download the ebook, it has my contact information. So if you have questions about anything we were talking about, I think I wrote the instructions right there. Just shoot me an email with gut health in the subject line so I know where you're coming from.
Awesome. All right, ladies, that's a wrap. Thank you all and have a wonderful weekend. And I'll see all you ladies next week on the call. Okay. Our clarity call. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.